Seeing the final message from Montiom, it was the kind of like it hits you right in the feels moment right at the end of the episode before the beautiful last illustration that we're getting for Ice Queendom. This show as a whole, I think if you look at it from a standpoint of what if RWBY went in this direction to maybe give early characterization that they didn't get until later volumes of the main show, I think it definitely serves a purpose as being a slightly what-if scenario, but also it kind of serves as a nice extra element that makes, if you go back and rewatch the original RWBY volumes, or go watch them for a first time, I think it gives early characterization and development that it takes sometimes multiple volumes to get to, but you kind of get it in this nice package because of everything they dealt with Nightmare Weiss, this Nightmare Grimm, and everything like that. And because of that whole food fight scene, I think for me, it hits even harder because as much as I think every RWBY fan in existence just agrees, like the food fight was such a fun thing in the original show, I think it hits a little harder because of everything they went through in Ice Queendom, and it makes it even better that they really stayed true to the original vision of that, which makes the entire project just feel warranted in my opinion. Like, I have my issues with the show. I think it was inconsistent visually. I mean, the actual fight scenes that we got over the last couple of episodes, both 11 and 12, for the most part, fairly fantastic. I mean, you can definitely tell where the time and attention went from the food fight, some of the key signature moves. But as a whole, I wish this show maybe could have gotten delayed a bit longer, but of course I know with how the world went to shit in it already delayed the show once already. I know they couldn't do that, but you can see where more attention could have been used in certain key shots. But as a whole, I think it serves as a nice standalone project if this is all we get, but you still see the potential for different RWBY spin-offs, potentially for all of the characters in certain ways. Like this season was an Ice Queendom, but there's different characters that you could, from just Team RWBY specifically, not to mention the number of side characters, that you could have spin-off anime that could create this almost like separate anime universe of RWBY that kind of stays true to the original show, but maybe just creates its own new character in the case of who was able to invade dreams and everything, which honestly, for a character brand new to the RWBY world, they did a great job with introducing someone that immediately fit with the tone. But it was really nice to see how they went out, because even though I think in the later portions of the episode, they made you definitely concerned, because if you look back earlier into the show's production, this was being presented as a one-and-done season, so a bad ending or maybe a darker ending was definitely a possibility. As unlikely as it was a slim possibility, and I think the sick part of me definitely was kind of wishing for that more than maybe some people would. But the thing that I do appreciate the fact that they went back to kind of connecting where you know RWBY ends up going is the fact that they lay the breadcrumbs in certain ways, like the fact of like you have John's semblance, right? You know, they're teasing like he's going to be special, which if you've seen RWBY, you know where that goes. Within the actual fight, when RWBY was dealing with everything herself, I love how they tie back to the reason her weapon was backwards, so she could shoot her own shadow sort of thing and it wouldn't see coming. But most importantly, the Silver's eyes, which if you know anything about RWBY is very important. Then you tie into the whole Professor Osmond's just talking like, hey, did anything special happen in there? You're definitely getting a lot of those setups for future RWBY things, and I think what makes me excited is that knowing that the creators do say, like, hey, if the demand's there, we would love to make more should we be able to. If they go that route, I just think about the numerous things from, like, the volume 2 through 5 era, and I think it'd be so interesting to see a different team take a slightly different approach, maybe present characterization in different ways while also introducing new elements, whether that's new characters, new fights, while also, as seen by the beginning of the show, some of the end of the show, and recreating some of those key moments in classical 2D animation sort of a thing. But that's what's pretty cool about RWBY Ice Queendom, is that it kind of serves both as it's a refresher in a certain way because of some of the key areas just basically being redone but in anime form. But the thing that I think makes it stand out and feel warranted to be kind of able to stand alongside something like the original RWBY is that it actually feels like it did something extra that the original didn't do until later on in the volumes. And that early characterization makes the reunion at the end, I think, feel way more impactful than maybe initially, because you look at it and you say, what everything Weiss has been through, the way characters thought Weiss thought of them, or the way she thought of other characters, just to see where they come by the end, it hits you a lot harder, I find. And I think that's why I really enjoyed the show overall, and why I could see myself rewatching this show alongside Whenever I go back to rewatch the original RWBY with all the volumes, I typically do that every couple of years, every few years as is. So the fact that I feel like I would want to rewatch this as well in anticipation of that rewatch is a good sign that it doesn't feel like just a random spin-off that you can forget about, which often happens with these types of shows when you have something that's kind of based on the original but also doing its own thing. And that's why I leave with a pretty big grin on my face. Like, it wasn't perfect by any means, but I've said it before, I think RWBY fans are used to things not being perfect in RWBY, but as long as the core aspect of the show is something that you enjoy, that's all we're really looking for. And I think they really upped their game with the fight scenes. I thought it was insanely animated for the most part. I mean, it was quick, it was brutal, and it really felt like some of the early stuff in the first couple of episodes of this show. But most importantly, it felt like the heart was there. I would honestly argue my favorite thing outside of obviously the food fight was actually the quick little moment we got of Little Weiss and just her talking with this. I love the fact that it kind of gave it like this storybook aesthetic. We've been dealing with so many nightmare looking locations, and just seeing, you know, her knight in shining armor there talking about how like one day she'll have to basically set free and do her own thing, find and maybe build her own castle sort of a thing. And I thought it kind of was like that nice bow in the package as you're kind of crumbling everything else around her in that moment. And it was just a really nice moment overall. And while I definitely thought they were going to maybe heal the pieces that were broken, the chess pieces, I think it works well enough that they basically cut the kind of like vines that was wrapping both Weiss as well as Blake. So it serves as a way that they can basically kill it within the dream, so then they can use the fishing rod outside to catch the Nightmare Grim that's just trying to escape and hop along to its next prey sort of a thing. To be honest, I haven't really been paying too much attention about the perception and basically the dialogue surrounding the show outside of my own comment section, so I'm not really sure how it was basically received outside of just people who talk in my own comment section, but I think this should serve as an ending that people will probably have a grin on their face, right? Episode 11, great kind of almost final battle. They finish it up within episode 12, obviously. But the way they tie back to the original core idea of the show, but also because of everything these characters have experienced in Ice Queendom, it's hard not to find like just them goofing off with that food fight all the more heartwarming. And yeah, it's badass because they're essentially fighting the exact same way they did with their weapons. But it's just what we've been through with these characters and what they've been through to lead into that moment. It's hard not to feel more wow, sort of like that's exactly what Monty would love to see from this show. And it was a good, fun time. That really is what it was and what it boils down to, in my opinion. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna claim that this was a perfect anime by any means, and there's probably areas from narrative to visuals that certain people would want to see different. But I think the way it started, the way it ended, it was a little rocky in the middle portion, but I think the way it kind of came together to make early characterization for these characters, it really has me hopeful that they will pursue other character seasons where maybe it won't even be characters from Team RWBY, maybe it'll be from Team Juniper, I don't know. But there's a lot of potential for spin-offs, and hopefully it's received well enough. I mean, RWBY was popular in Japan even before this anime popped up, so I think the likelihood of more, it's not zero. And I think it's probably a 50-50 coin toss if you ask me. So fingers crossed, I think there's a lot of potential, but if this is all we get, at the very least, early characterization for RWBY on rewatches is more than welcomed in my opinion. But thoughts and feelings on either episode 11 or 12. We are now officially done with Ice Queendom. What did you think? And do you think you'll ever see yourself rewatching it if you go back to rewatch the original RWBY? Do let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.